Chapter 41, Prince got to know you are listening at novel full.audio. Listening to his explanation, Murong Shui was speechless. Murong Yi was only older than her by an hour, and he was just a 14-year-old kid. It was difficult for him to take the role as a parent and at the same time also be a matchmaker. She took a gaze at him and asked him softly. Are you done talking? If you are, you may leave now, and also bring Gu Haoyu with you. No, wait. Murong Yi was shocked and replied. It took me a lot of effort to choose such a great future brother. Law. I'm not interested with him. Murong Shui shook her head. Even if you aren't interested in him, you still have to talk to him since he has already come to visit. Murong Yi smiled. Murong Shui looked at him and said. I have nothing to talk with him. You can ask about how his parents are doing, or if he is busy with work and so on. I tried so hard to invite him to come, it's ill-mannered if you just ask him to leave like this. Murong Yi pulled Murong Shui to Gu Haoyu and smiled. Both of you have a little chat first. I'll go and check with the kitchen servants to see whether the high tea is ready to serve. He left both of them without saying another word. Murong Shui looked at Gu Haoyu and sighed. My brother is such a dandy. Sorry for the disturbance, please let me lead you to the main door perhaps. Gu Haoyu was shocked by her words, but his expression returned to calm almost immediately and he smiled. After you, Miss Murong. Murong Yi looked on as his sister and Gu Haoyu left. He felt depressed as he merely wanted them to have a chat. His world was crushed completely as his hard work and efforts were completely stomped beneath his sister's feet, as if it was nothing. A ray of sunlight sparkled up the road. Murong Shui was still silent, and even in their stroll, the atmosphere was filled with a slight discomfort as it was too quiet. After a while, Gu Haoyu could not stand the silence any longer, and started to state out his intentions. To tell you the truth, the reason why I'm here today was not purely out of your brother's kind invitation. I am willing to come over by myself because I've heard so much about you and I admire you, Miss Murong, so I'm here to meet you personally. Admire me? Murong Shui exclaimed. She looked at Gu Haoyu in disbelief. Have we met before this? In her memory, there was no one like this man standing in front of her right now. She had only met a few people since her arrival at Qin Yan. Of course. I first saw you when you broke off your engagement, which shocked everyone in their seats during the banquet dinner by Prince Jing. Even now, he still remembered the scene vividly in his mind. The girl who was once as gentle as a dove changed into a completely different person. A brave girl with such strong courage that even the mighty sun loses its power. Murong Shui was stunned for a moment. As her eyes blinked quickly she tried to recall back to that night. She was busy entertaining Yi Chen and Qin Yuyan then and did not manage to see who was in the hall. Gu Gongzi, don't you have a slight judgmental thought about my misbehavior? That night, she had gathered up her courage and announced the break-off of her engagement with Prince of War, Yi Chen, in front of everyone. Her family and friends were enraged by her actions. Why would you think so? Just as you mentioned, you're the first daughter of Zhen Manor. How can you marry a person like that? It was Yi Chen lost to overlook your positive traits, my lady. Gu Haoyu praised her while looking at her with pure adoration in his eyes. Oh, how sweet of you to say that, Mr. Gu. Murong Shui smiled in bliss. Gu Haoyu, who had lost himself in her beauty, blurted out, Miss Murong, actually, I. Suddenly, 3 men in black attacked him out of nowhere, cutting his conversation. Gu Haoyu was appalled by this sudden attack. Being a temperate scholar, he was soon pressed down under those attackers, with no ability at all to fight back. Murong Shui saw what happened to him, shook off her surprise and started snapping, Stop. Stop immediately. Those men ignore her and continued their brutal attack. Murong Shui used her mighty strength and kicked away one of the attacker, and she spread out her arms, standing in front of Gu Haoyu and be his human shield. She stared coldly at the 3 of them. How dare you come over here and commit this crime? Which house are you from? The leader of the group stepped forward, replied with a cold tone, Yes, Miss Murong, we are requested by Master Yi, Yi Chen, to kill those men who are close to you. Murong Shue's face darkened instantly. How dare Yi Chen plant his spies in her house compound, and blatantly emerged in this way to attack people, how arrogant. Guess this is what will happen to all of the men who came near her. Leave this place. I don't want to see you all over again. Those men looked blankly among themselves, and then stared at Gu Haoyu who was lying on the floor. The surroundings shifted quickly from the previous tension to distress. Murong Shue turned behind and found Gu Haoyu's face was swollen like a pig from the beating, his hair was a crazy mess, even his turquoise royal robe was torn, and she looked at him in pity. Gu Haoyu leaned against the wall and gradually pulled himself up. He smiled warmly at her and said, "Miss Murong, don't worry about me, I'm fine." A sharp prick pierced into his bones and wounds as he smiled, he hitched a breath out of pain. "I'll ask my man to send you back, I think it is wiser to not come over here again." Murong Shue sighed and turned around, making her way back to her home. Gu Haoyu's face darkened, his eyes kept following the lady, Miss Murong. Murong Shue ignored him, she did not turn her head, she just continued on back to her house. The reason why she did not want to be Gu Haoyu's friend was not because of her fear towards Yi Chen, it was because she did not like him as a person. Her resentment with Yi Chen could be settled between themselves, there's no need to burden the others. The sound of footsteps could be heard behind the main door. With this, she knew that her men had sent off Gu Haoyu. Even after a distance, she could still feel the piercing eyes on her, she sighed at the thought of this. Just then, Murong Yi walked out from behind a big tree, he glared angrily at the door. He had stalked both of them to see if Murong Shue and Gu Haoyu would start a conversation, but was furious when he saw the sight of Yi Chen's spies. Yi Chen is such a bully. He shouted in rage. Yi Chen is the Prince of War, he is mighty and powerful with troops made of the best warriors. I'm telling you now, don't set me up for a blind date with someone else, otherwise today's incident will happen again. Murong Shue glanced at him. No, I don't believe that Yi Chen can rule the city like this. Murong Ye's eyes filled with pure rage and displeasure. Indeed, Yi Chen is famous for his powerful fighting skills and mighty strength. If he could find someone better than him for his sister, Yi Chen could no longer be as arrogant as now. Murong Shue did not know of her brother's mischievous plans, she walked past him and went back to her own crib. When she opened her room door, a handsome young man turned around, she exclaimed in delight, "Mr. Ouyang. Were you on a blind date? Are you getting married soon?" Ouyang Xiaochen stepped forward towards her, with a slight smirk on his face, who knows what kind of danger was awaiting her this time. Meishi's note. Oh Murong Yi, next time just use Tinder. XD. Chapter 42, Jealousy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The statement made Murong Shue's stomach churn, she felt something wrong, like she was misunderstood, and she hastily shook her head and denied. No, that was not it. Then why did you go to a blind date? Ouyang Xiaochen continued teasing her while stepping even closer to her. His footsteps were heavy, she receded backwards without noticing her movement. It was my brother. With that, she tripped and fell right on her back, slamming herself down on the cold hard ground. Ouyang Xiaochen dashed forward swiftly, without any flaws or hesitation, he grabbed her slim waist tightly in his arms and held her to his chest, he whispered in jealousy, "But you and Gu Haoyu had such intimate time together just now." His sweet masculine smell lingered around her tiny nose, and his hot breath was blowing softly on her cheeks. Part of her was mesmerized by him, another part of her wanted to push him away. Even though his skill was better than hers was not too bad either, but she felt so fragile and weak in his arms right now. She squinted her eyes and looked at him, he is the guest, and it is my courtesy to serve him politely. If I were to set him aside without a care, what would others think of me? Ouyang Xiaochen nodded his head as if he understood her point, he thought this excuse was reasonable, but, when the spies of Jing Wang beaten up Gu Haoyu, you blocked them in front of him, what did that mean? Murong Shue got so fed up with his questioning, he was so demanding and controlling. Gu Haoyu was here as a guest, but was attacked in front of my house. How could I sit still and ignore the situation? Even if there was a beggar who got beaten up, my men would still go over and help. Is that so? Just like that. Ouyang Xiaochen stared deeply into her eyes with doubts. Of course, why would I lie to you? Murong Shui nodded her head, her face was so sincere that she almost swore with her hands up. Ouyang's face lightened a bit, nonchalantly told her, come find me in the future no matter what happens, I will definitely help you till the end. Even when I'm getting married. Murong Shui joked. Yes, you can. Ouyang looked at her with his dark black eyes. Murong Shui went speechless. The elegant and handsome Ouyang had just made a cold joke, which was not really funny. Looking up, Murong Shui gazed into his hypnotic eyes, she coughed slightly and said, by the way, why did you come? Yubao Xian Market brought in a new stock, one of them is Diang grass. Ouyang mumbled and continued on, they will start selling in the morning. Murong Shui was dumbfounded, why didn't you tell me earlier? It was already late morning, the auction market had already begun half an hour ago, and she doubted there would be any Diang grass left on site. You were being all lovey-dovey with Gu Haoyu when I reached here, do you expect me to just go over and pulled you away to the auction market? Ouyang arched his eyebrows as if he was looking at a fool. Murong Shui. Alright, she got it, it was all her fault. Well. Let's get to the auction market now. Murong Shui broke herself away from his arms, turned her back and sprinted to the market, silently praying that Diang grass had not been sold off yet. Suddenly, a strong hand reached out to stop her. Ouyang's deepened voice could be heard from behind, are you sure you're going there in this? Why can't I? Murong Shui checked herself out in confusion. Ouyang glanced at her, and then he pulled her to the door of her closet. He opened it and chose a sweet pink sundress, change into this, then we'll go. Murong Shui looked down at her dress and saw patches of grey dust, this dress was unfit to be worn. Suddenly, slim fair fingers found their way to her waist, and those fingers tore the ribbon belt between her waist. Murong Shui was surprised by this, she slapped his hands away and glared at him, what do you think you're doing? Helping you to change. Ouyang explained to her indifferently, seemed like he did not have any mischievous thought in his mind at all. He did this as if it was totally normal for him to help her change. It's alright, I can do it by myself. Murong Shui grabbed hold of his hands in panic, she changed her own clothes all this while, and there was no need of others' help in her own matter. You're too slow, with this changing speed of yours, we wouldn't be able to make it to the auction market. Ouyang told her calmly, his hands immediately freed themselves from her grab. He used only one tiny hook of a finger, her first button sprang off in an instant. Benovcom Murong Shui was furious, she threw her best daggered eyes at him and scolded, Mr. Ouyang, do you know that I'm a lady and you're a man? Even though they were rushing, he simply could not do this. Of course I know. With an evil smirk on his face, once again he hooked the rest of the buttons with his fingers, the buttons bounced off along with his action. His speedy action was too fast and before she even realized, her dress was halfway unbuttoned. She shouted in anger, Ouyang. It is improper for men and women to touch each other. Wasn't he the smartest and noblest man in Qingyan? Didn't he know this rule? We are rushing to the auction market for the life-saving Diang grass, we have to save time now. Ouyang Xiaochen glanced at her and snapped his finger gently. The last button on her skirt loose, open and slipped down from her shoulder, revealing her soft skin and beige tube top. Murong Shui clenched her teeth and glared at him furiously. There was not a sign of wild desire going on in Ouyang Xiaochen mind. Without a second thought, he took a sweet pink-colored dress to cover her body swiftly and buttoned her dress. He grabbed her wrist and said, all right, let's go to the auction house now. Ouyang Xiaochen. She can actually change herself, but he insisted to change for her. She wanted to slap him. Ouyang Xiaochen tilted his body slightly to avoid her attack, he then wrapped his arm around her waist. He walked out of the room and said, "It's time to go now." Without enough time for her to react, she was actually floating in the air. Ouyang Xiaochen has carried her with him and flew. Chapter 43, Conflict in the Auction House. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shitzi means heir son, referring to the heir apparent of Qin Wang, basically son of the emperor's brother. The wind whipped at her face, the scenery changed rapidly in front of her eyes. The anger in her had disappeared, she widened her eyes. Was this the levitation practiced in the ancient times? This is so cool. She wanted to learn it someday when she was free. Murong Shui saw a huge and impressive building with a beige-white front door. The top part of the door was carved Yu Bao Xian. The exterior of the building was elegant and magnificent. Ouyang Xiaochen grasped her waist tightly and continued to fly in the sky. There was no indication that he was going to stop. Murong Shui reminded him softly, "Shitzi, we've reached Yu Bao Xian, we shall go down now. There are many products available for auction this time in Yu Bao Xian, it must be crowded in there. We are not going to the main hall, we'll go to the private room." The windows looked exactly the same. Murong Shui asked curiously, "You sure you know which one is the private room that you've booked?" "Of course I do." Ouyang Xiaochen said confidently with a smile on his face and went straight into one of the private rooms. When they landed at the private room, a familiar figure appeared in the room. It was Xuanfeng. When Xuanfeng saw Ouyang Xiaochen and Murong Shui, he bowed and greeted them politely. Murong Shui nodded and released Ouyang Xiaochen's arm that wrapped around her waist. She made her steps toward the door of the private room. The hall was fully filled. A pretty lady was standing right at the center of the stage. Her hand was holding a maroon-colored lingji. This is a 1,000-years-long fire lingji, it can cure over 100 types of disease. The starting bid is $10,000. $20,000. $30,000. $40,000. Murong Shui smiled a little when she looked at the fire lingji. This is the highest grade among lingji and it can be hardly found. No matter how severe the injuries are, as long as you consume the fire lingji, you will recover. The products selling in Yu Bao Xian were really in good quality. Ouyang Xiaochen was standing behind the window, looking at his hand. This was the hand that wrapped around her waist. He can still smell her fragrance, her nice scent. He walked toward the table and poured a cup of tea. He handed the cup of tea to Murong Shui. "Come. Sit down and have some tea." "Thanks." Murong Shui took a sip of tea, her sight did not leave the stage. "I wonder if the Dian grass was sold. I'm waiting it here all day long, I'm sure that the Dian grass was not sold yet," said Xuanfeng. "That's great." Murong Shui was relieved to hear that. The pretty lady on the stage smiled sweetly and said, "Fire lingji is now belong to Sir Wang, congratulations. The next selling item is a box of Dian grass, the starting bid is $5,000. Murong Shui noticed that the box of Dian grass was exactly the same as the Dian grass she saw in the book previously. $10,000. $15,000. $20,000. $50,000. The whole auction hall was quieted down by the girl's voice. The bidders frowned and shook their heads. Dian grass has its own efficacy, it's not suitable for everyone to consume like ginseng or lingji. The bidders wanted to buy Dian grass at a reasonable price and keep it, in case of any emergency. However, the bid called by Murong Shui was far exceeded the actual value of Dian grass. $50,000 calling once, $50,000 calling twice, $50,000 calling thrice. "There's no higher calling bid, the Dian grass now belonged to that lady," said the pretty lady on the stage. Bang! As the hammer was knocked down, the voice of a lady said, "Hold on." A dainty lady walked slowly into the auction hall. She was wearing a yellow long dress, a pair of bright clear mesmerizing eyes, she was so beautiful. Isn't this Miss Shu Nanxiang? It's her, the master's eldest daughter, the talented woman in the capital. She's the definition for perfection. I wonder why she is here. Obviously she wants to bid items here, but I wonder what she wants to bid. All the people in the hall were looking at Shu Nanxiang. Shu Nanxiang was used to all these compliments. She walked toward the stage at a leisurely pace. Looking at the pretty lady on the stage and said, "Miss, I offer $100,000 to buy the box of Dian grass." The pretty lady was stunned and rejected politely, "I'm sorry that I cannot accept your offer, Miss Shu. This box of Dian grass is considered sold. She hasn't paid yet, so the transaction is unsuccessful," said Shu Nanxiang. The transaction is successful when the hammer is knocked down, even though the bidder has not paid for the item. If Miss Shu is interested to buy this Dian grass, you can discuss with that lady. The pretty lady on the stage explained to Miss Shu in detail. Yubao Xian was famous and popular in town as it provided fair auction and followed strict rule. The bidder has to abide the rule. Oh, I see, thanks for the information. Shu Nanxiang turned to Murong Shui. Oh, that's the private room booked by Ouyang family. Why is Murong Shui standing there? Shu Nanxiang can hardly see the face of Murong Shui as the curtain covered Murong Shui's face. Shu Nanxiang scowled a little. This lady, my mother has caught a cold, and she needs Dian grass urgently to sweep the cold away from her body. Can you please sell it to me? There are many other herbs that have the same efficacy to cure a cold. It is not necessary that you must use Dian grass. Murong Shui knew that many other herbs can substitute Dian grass to cure a cold. My mother has caught a severe cold. Using Dian grass will obtain the best result, said Shu Nanxiang. I'm sorry, Miss Shu. I have a severe disease that needs Dian grass to cure. Only this herb can treat my disease. If Shu Nanxiang's mother truly was sick, she will give the Dian grass to her. However, her mother can actually be treated with other medicine. She had lost the fire lotus seed. She cannot afford to lose the Dian grass anymore because there are not more Dian grass available. She only had 2 fire lotus seeds in hand. Shu Nanxiang was taken aback by Murong Shui's response. You really don't want to sell the Dian grass to me? It's not that I don't want to, it's I can't afford to do so. Murong Shui answered coolly. The people at the auction hall exchanged glances. One wanted to buy while the other one did not want to sell. How would this end? Yubao Xian was in dead silence. Shu Nanxiang frowned, looked into the private room where Murong Shui was standing. Ouyang Xiaochen, do you think this lady should sell this Dian grass to me? The crowd started to whisper. Prince Ouyang has came to Yubao Xian. Murong Shui was shocked. Shu Nanxiang knew Ouyang Xiaochen. Chapter 44, Decision of the Prince. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Merry Christmas to all. Shitzi means heir son, referring to the heir apparent of Qin Wang, basically son of the emperor's brother. Qin Wang means a prince of first rank or a prince of blood Furen. A respectful form to address a married woman, Wangfei. Wife of, in this case, Qin Wang, a title given to the wife of a member of royalty. Murong Shui looked at Ouyang Xiaochen. He put down the cup that was pressed against his lips. His expression was cool. He moved forward elegantly. He was truly handsome and gorgeous. Everyone was stretching their necks to take a good look at Ouyang Xiaochen, to witness the glamour of Ouyang Xiaochen. This was Ouyang Shitzi. He was genuinely good-looking, even better than the description of the people who met him before. It was really a great reward to see Ouyang Shitzi when they came to Yubao Xian. Shu Nanxiang was standing in the center of the auction hall, gazing at the face she had been missed all the time. Her eyes only gazed at Ouyang Shitzi at this moment. When he left the capital, she didn't get to say goodbye to him because she was at her great-grandmother's house. A few days ago when he came back to the capital, coincidentally she was at her great-grandmother's house and couldn't meet up with him. It's been almost 2 decades since they last met each other. He was taller than before, much more pleasant looking as well. She had grown up, missing him all this time. Ouyang Shitsi, it's long time that I haven't seen you. Shu Nanxiang said gently. Miss Shu. Ouyang Xiaochen nodded as he replied. Shu Nanxiang's face was filled with the happiness that a young girl had when sees her crush. She held her silk handkerchief tightly in her hand, she was a bit nervous. In a reserved manner, she said, I came back to the capital just now. I plan to pay a visit tomorrow, never thought that I will see you here. My parents are not in the capital right now. Said Ouyang Xiaochen. Is it? I've bought the finest pearl powder from Chuanzhou as a gift for Wang Fei. Shu Nanxiang said with a broad smile on her face. Ouyang Xiaochen was quiet. Shitsi, what's the relationship between you and Shu Nanxiang? Murong Shui asked curiously, they must be very close. Her grandfather was the most famous Confucianist in the capital. He was my master when I was 5 years old. He taught me for a few years. Ouyang Xiaochen said softly. Murong Shui nodded, it turned out to be both of you are childhood sweethearts. No wonder Shu Nanxiang gazed at him in full admiration and such a way like he was her long-lost husband. They actually had a special relationship back then. Ouyang Xiaochen frowned a little and said in a low voice, I was learning from the master in the front yard, I've never stepped into her house compound. We're not that close as we only meet once or twice per year. So both of you knew each other since young and grew together, it's right to say that both of you are childhood sweethearts. Murong Shui winked. Staring at Murong Shui, Ouyang Xiaochen thought to himself. Why didn't she remember the memories they share when they were young? Shu Nanxiang was amazed and she wondered who was the lady that can stand right beside Ouyang Xiaochen and talk in whisper with him. Ouyang Xiaochen was superior and he never talked to the ladies that were the same age with him. Only when Shu Nanxiang talked to him, he will reply in simple answer. This honor only belonged to Shu Nanxiang and should never be shared with the other ladies. Ouyang Shitsi, to be honest, my mother is suffering from the disease and it's really torturing for her. If I can get Diang grass for her, she will recover soon and replenish her health. Shu Nanxiang said in a gentle and humble manner. Shu Nanxiang could no longer wait for Ouyang Shitsi to make the decision, who should get the Diang grass. Everyone held their breath and looked at Ouyang Shitsi, they were guessing the decision of Ouyang Shitsi. Ouyang Xiaochen took a quick glance around the auction hall, finally he looked at Murong Shui who was standing beside him and said, Shu Furen is our elder, she is very old now. You're still young, I think it'll be more appropriate if you can sell the Diang grass to Miss Shu. Shu Nanxiang was relieved to hear his answer. She looked at Ouyang Xiaochen with full gratitude, she knew she was the special one in his heart, it will never change no matter who appears in his life. Murong Shui's face was filled with anger and glared at Ouyang Xiaochen. Who says that age is corresponding to the severity of a disease? Shu Nanxiang's mother is old and she should give the Diang grass to her. What kind of logic is this? That he should not show partiality even though Shu Nanxiang was his childhood sweethearts. Ouyang Shitsi, Shu Furen can still live without the Diang Chao. However, without Diang grass I'll die when the poison attacks my body, said Murong Shui. Ouyang Xiaochen looked into her eyes, the box consists only one plant of Diang grass, which means it can only save you once. Well, it's better than none, right? I'll die in pain without the Diang grass. Murong Shui interrupted his words, she was certainly furious with his decision. Ouyang Xiaochen grinned a little, he knew he should not fool her any further, the servant just told me that he found a large amount of Diang grass, you can go pluck it yourself, as much as you want. Murong Shui was delighted, is it true? Ouyang Xiaochen nodded, have I ever lied to you before? He asked her to give the box of Diang grass to his childhood sweetheart, he must give her something back in return to compensate her. However, she would prefer uncountable Diang grass compared to only one plant of Diang grass because it will secure her life in that way. She did not need to fight for it anymore, alright, you can have the box of Diang grass. Looking at her generous act, Ouyang Xiaochen smiled. Xu Nanxiang's expression suddenly became stiff. There was not much Diang grass available on the market, in fact the price was very high. Ouyang Shixi asked the lady to sell the box of Diang grass to her for $100,000 but he gave the lady it for free. Unlimited supply of Diang grass for free. He was being nice to the lady. Xu Nanxiang knew Ouyang Xiaochen for 13 years, he had never treated her the way he treated the lady beside him right now. Meishi's note. Our family's Ouyang Xiaochen only has eyes for Murong Shui, give it up lady. Chapter 45, Everything has settled down. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Merry Christmas everybody. Here is your Christmas present. Shixi. Means, heir son, referring to the heir apparent of Qin Wang, basically son of the emperor's brother. The only difference was when she talked to Ouyang Xiaochen, he will reply her seriously, even though it was in a polite manner, at least he was listening to her. She thought she was different to him. Today, this was what she saw, Ouyang Xiaochen standing right beside a girl, bickering with each other with a smile on his face. Xu Nanxiang was truly hurt, thanks for selling the boss of Diang grass to me. May I know your name so that I can reciprocate your kindness someday? Xu Nanxiang used $100,000 to buy one plant of Diang grass. Murong Shui used nothing to get an unlimited supply of Diang Chao. Xu Nanxiang must hate her very much now. She only wanted to see who is the lady beside Ouyang Xiaochen right now, her wish should be granted. Murong Shui grinned as she lifted up the curtain. Xu Nanxiang was taken aback, you're Murong Shui. She had seen Murong Shui for a few times when she entered the palace, but she did not pay much attention, now Murong Shui had become her rival. Murong Shui nodded as she smiled. Miss Xu is willing to spend $100,000 to buy Diang grass for Xu Furen, you're truly a filial daughter. Xu Nanxiang's face became darker and more dissatisfied. Murong Shui bought the box of Diang grass at $50,000, but now she was selling it at $100,000. Xu Nanxiang thought to herself. It is fine to be in a disadvantageous position, at least now she knows who is her rival. Thanks for your compliment, said Xu Nanxiang. Looking at Xu Nanxiang's calm expression, Murong Shui grinned. She spent $50,000 more for the Diang grass but still can act like nothing actually happened, she was definitely someone great. Since she did not want to argue with Murong Shui also did not want to talk much with her. Murong Shui glanced sideways at Ouyang Xiaochen, Ouyang Shixi, we shall go now. Murong Shui came to Yubao Xian to bid the box of Diang grass. Now that it was sold, she did not need to stay here any longer. All right. Ouyang Xiaochen nodded, he smiled a little as he walked out. Everyone is staring at Ouyang Xiaochen with respect as he walked out. Xu Nanxiang did not take her eyes off him. As he walked step by step down the stairs, across all the people, he did not look at her for once or show any intention to talk to her. She was shocked, how could Ouyang Shixi forget her entirely, how could this be? As Ouyang Xiaochen was about to leave Yubao Xian, Xu Nanxiang called out, Ouyang Shixi, please wait for a while. Yes. Ouyang Xiaochen said coldly and distantly, he stopped but he did not turn around. Xu Nanxiang hesitated as she looked at Murong Shui. Murong Shui winked and said to Ouyang Xiaochen, both of you shall have a long chat, I'll wait for you outside. Xu Nanxiang and Ouyang Xiaochen are childhood sweethearts, it had been so long since they last met each other, definitely they will have a lot to talk about, it will be weird for her to stay there. Ouyang Xiaochen stared at Murong Shui as she walked out from Yubao Xian. She was looking here and there, she seemed to be frustrated at the long wait. He smiled at the thought. Xu Nanxiang clenched her hands and moved forward, she reminded gently, Ouyang Shixi, Murong Shui is Prince Jing's fiancé. Ouyang Xiaochen's face was serious, he knitted his brows and said coldly, so what? The engagement will soon be broken off, but she had an engagement with Prince Jing already. Although the engagement will soon be broken off, as a prince, you should not marry a lady that Prince Jing abandoned. Ouyang Xiaochen looked straight into her with dark and piercing eyes. Miss Xu, you care too much. Xu Nanxiang was frightened by the harshness of Ouyang Xiaochen. She was trembling. Miss Xu, I think it'll be best if you take good care of your own business. Please don't get involved when it's not your matter. Ouyang Xiaochen turned around and walked out from Yubao Xian without a second look at Xu Nanxiang. Xu Nanxiang was aggrieved. She clenched her teeth. Everything she do is for Ouyang Xiaochen's good. Why can't he see this? Ouyang Xiaochen walked toward Murong Shui. What are you doing? Murong Shui turned around and looked at him strangely. Both of you have finished talking so fast. Ouyang Xiaochen sounded like he did not care. I do not have much things to talk to her. Murong Shui winked as she talked. I thought you would take a long time to talk with her. I'm seeking for an umbrella stall. I'm going to buy an umbrella and wait for you to finish. Ouyang Xiaochen sighed as he thought to himself. She's not waiting for him to come back as she looked here and there, she's actually looking for an umbrella stall. Is the sun scorching? Asked Ouyang Xiaochen. The sun in March was warm but definitely not scorching. Murong Shui nodded. It's a bit scorching to me. People with cold poison in their bodies were actually very weak. When the weather is cold, they will feel freeze. When the weather is hot, they will faint easily. Xuanfen walked toward them and handed an umbrella to Ouyang Xiaochen. Ouyang Xiaochen opened the umbrella for Murong Shui to protect her from the strong ray. Do you feel better now? Definitely a lot better. Murong Shui smiled as she replied Ouyang Xiaochen. She then whispered to him, Shitzi, the unlimited supply of Diang grass that you mentioned just now, where is the exact location? Murong Shui wanted to ask when they were at Yubao Xian just now, but there were too many people there. Diang grass is one of the best quality herb, it was very expensive. If the Diang grass were stolen by the others, she will be in danger. It's actually on top of a mountain, quite far from the capital. Ouyang Xiaochen stopped as he saw a figure passed by. He glanced in the direction of the figure. Murong Shui was paying full attention at Ouyang Xiaochen, waiting for his answer. She consciously glanced toward the same direction of Ouyang Xiaochen. Xuangxi was running in the street, sweating profusely. Xuangxi, what are you doing here? Murong Shui shouted. Xuangxi stopped as she heard Murong Shui's voice. She turned and ran toward Murong Shui happily. Murong Shui took a look at Xuangxi and asked, is it something happened to my brother again? No, it's not. Xuangxi shook her head. Wu An's family has sent an invitation card, to invite Madame, Murong Yi and you to the dinner. What's the dinner? Asked Murong Shui. 3 days later is Master Wu and Ho's 50th birthday. Chapter 46, Murong Rose Impish Tricks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Merry Christmas everybody. Here is your Christmas present. The citizens of Qin Yan appreciated their parents and elderly. Filial is their life motto. Moreover, they were all well-educated lads. The age of 50.5 is a good age for major celebration. This was the best time to rejoice in this special occasion, and it could be a good stepping stone to regain reputation. The House of Wuan would surely organize it. Do you want to go to the dinner party? Ouyang Xiaochen asked quietly. No, I won't. Murong Shui shook her head without hesitancy. She recalled back the time she forced Murong Ro to return her the debt of almost a few hundred thousands. Murong Ro must have hated her so much right now. Murong Ro might be finding some evil ways to humiliate her at the dinner. Probably she unwillingly gave her this invitation. It was not that she feared her evil plans, she simply did not want to waste her time and efforts in this drama. Sir, I think we should discuss about the Diang grass beforehand. She only had 2 fire lotus seeds left in her hands, which required immediate remedy from Diang grass. Her eyes were filled with weariness. Ouyang Xiaochen calmed the lady. Diang grass is a plant that needs constant sunlight. It usually grows on the mountain peak, and to climb up that mountain which it is on is not as easy as we thought. Ouyang Xiaochen and Murong Shui walked side by side under the golden sunlight. They talked while planning their journey. What they did not know was that right in front of them, Shuangxi was walking towards their directions. She saw two figures with white long robe and soft pink dress and was surprised with the sight. Was that Ouyang Xiaochen, she thought. As clean as a whistle, as handsome as paint, his gestures were so graceful and gentle, he looked just like how he was described in the city. Wait a minute, rumors had it that he would never go near ladies, so how could he have walked so closely with the young miss? In the house of Wu and Murong Ro picked up the curtain and stepped into the main hall with the help of maids and maidens. She bowed slightly and wished, "How do you do, mother?" Madame Song Lao sat beside the window. She was wearing a navy blue robe that had patterns of a golden age, her head had a head scarf of the same color as her robe, her hands was rolling Buddha beads. She replied back to her daughter-in-law unresponsively, "Get up from your knees, how's the birthday preparation so far?" "In fact, I came here today to report back to you about this matter. This is a list of my arrangement on that day. Here's the menu list, please have a look at it." Murong Ro stood up beamingly, and she handed over her menu lists to Madame Song Lao. Madame Song Lao flipped open the brochures. She noticed that the arrangement made by her daughter-in-law was all more expensive than the past years. It consisted of singing operas, poetry reading, art exhibition and luxurious delicacies. Her face lightened slightly. "We will go with your plan, but don't ruin things up, be more meticulous." "Yes, madam." Murong Ro replied politely. Madame Song closed back the leaflets in her hands and spat, "You better prove to me what you've said, don't repeat the same incident in Lu Jia Puzi and ruin the reputation of Wu En's family." Greed is a common attribute in human beings. In order to take action on greed, you have to be wise not to get caught by others, but that was not the case for Murong Ro. She left a huge traces behind her and caused chaos. She was already well recognized for her materialistic character. She was always taking advantage of elderly people and the young children. As for Madame Wu, she was also famous for her notorious horrid behavior. They were an embarrassment for the house of Wu. Murong Ro was stunned on her feet when she heard what the old Madame Song said about Lu Jia Puzi. Her hands clutched tightly underneath her sleeves. The story of Lu Jia Puzi was the day when the house of Shen got married. Madame already knew it even before then. When she stole those things from there for the old Madame Song, she was delighted and kept praising her for her filially. Now that things had gotten into a mess, she placed all blame upon her shoulders and wiped herself clean from the accusation. How cunning. "Mother, you are right, I know my mistake." Murong Ro clenched her teeth, but remained as a sweet daughter-in-law as she was supposed to be. Madame Song started to get irritated by her and snapped, "Don't just stand there, go and do your things. As for the wedding, you better plan it properly, I don't want to see any mistakes in it." The incident that happened to Lu Jia Puzi had been spread throughout the city. People were pointing and the house of Wu became a laughing stock, even when the maids were out to buy groceries. They invited several important people from the government to this birthday banquet as well, not merely for the celebration, but to serve the purpose of explaining themselves too. After all, it was Murong Ro's fault. The rest of the family members were cultured, and everybody knew that. Yes. Murong Ro made her final bow in respect and walked out of the hall gracefully. Old Madame Song watched her daughter-in-law and thought to herself, out of so many good choices in the city, how could her son choose this idiot? She would not even think to let her son to marry this girl if she was not the close friend of the house due, and Murong Ro was the daughter of this close friend of hers. If they were not acquainted, Murong Ro would not stand a chance in here so peacefully. Old Madame Song would only pass all arrangements to her because her second daughter-in-law had no experience in this. She had a plan of letting Murong Ro stay in the kitchen instead of coming out to serve the guests, since she had disgraced their house. She could also use this opportunity to teach her second daughter-in-law, so that she could replace Murong Ro in the future. Murong Ro's expression switched from sweet to evil. Right after she strode out of the hall, her handkerchief was crumpled badly in her fist, feeling betrayed by that old woman. A tall figure walked towards her. Murong asked emotionlessly, "How's everything?" A maid bowed politely to her and said, "Yes ma'am, everything is done, what's left is the celebration." "That's brilliant." Murong nodded her head, her face lightened up a bit by this. She could take vengeance on old Madame Song after this, but Murong busted her out openly, and the scene of her being shamed was vividly in her mind. Since then, different kinds of names. Wicked, crafty, and such followed her no matter where she went. She could not even lift her head up to face the public. She was this lowest point of her life because of Murong she would not sit still, she wanted to take revenge on both of the brother and sister, and she wanted them to feel exactly how she felt. 3 days passed by swiftly. It was the wedding celebration of Madame Wuan. Since dawn, the house of Du and Murong had departed in a carriage to the destination. Murong feared of going to the party, thus she stayed in her room to pack up some belongings after giving excuses of not feeling well. Yushan Mountain was the place where Dian grass was planted. People could only reach this place after one whole day of journey in miles. Furthermore, it took time to climb up the mountain and getting down. With this she had to be fully prepared. "Miss, the young master is in trouble." Chapter 47, First Deception. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Second Xiaoye. Young master. A piercing panicked voice traveled to her ears. Murong stopped what she was doing and laughed to herself. She should have known this about her brother. Murong would not enjoy the birthday celebration peacefully, but she did not expect things to escalate this quick. He got into this trouble not even 1 hour after his departure. Indeed, Murong could not wait any longer. She understood undoubtedly that she being sick could be excused from the celebration. Murong was the son of Zhen Manor and the nephew of the Murong. His presence was crucial no matter what. He must have tried to protect himself from Murong's setup. Murong turned to look at the person. "What happened? Tell me." The messenger was Murong's steward, Feng Tao. Based on his looks, she guessed she was probably only 15 or 16 years old. He was panting hard from the running. "My lady. Master gambled with her Song Xiaoye. And he lost." Murong was young, thus his skill might not be as good, and therefore it was normal for him to lose in gambling. How much did he lose? 100,000. What? Murong was startled. Murong did not usually lost this much when he was gambling, the most was only few thousands. Feng Tao said bitterly, "They made a lot of high bets, it was around 5 to 6 thousands per round. I told him to stop when I saw him losing but he wouldn't listen, that's why I came over to tell you." Murong forgot about everything once he started gambling, such pampered child. He could still control his desire even if it's Murong's trick. With that amount of money, the normal citizens could not even finish them for centuries. Did he realize how difficult and how long it would take for them to earn back these 12 thousands? Murong was in fury. "Where is Murong now? Bring me to him." "Yes, ma'am." Feng Tao cheered up promptly. "Please wait ma'am, I will go and prepare the carriage." "There's no use in doing that, we go right now by using the short way. I want to reach the house of Wuan as soon as possible." Murong retorted. She was very well aware on Murong's addiction in gambling. Feng Tao spent so much time coming back here to find her, he must have gambled a few more rounds, who knows, he could be losing more money than before. If they wasted time on preparing carriage, that amount of a few 100,000 that they had just collected would be vanished in the air just like that. Murong knew how much he loves to gamble and used this weakness to set him up. How smart. Noted. Feng Tao replied in confidence and left the mansion with Murong. He guided her along the way and after a few turnings, finally they reached their destination. The shimmery golden signboard above the door which wrote, "The House of Wuan," could be seen under the ray of sunshine. The head of governments, people with big titles and important generals were walking in and out of the main door, laughing happily as they passed. Lavish gifts were stacked up like a mountain, and the housekeeper ordered the maids to arrange the presents. Murong Shue had a sulk on her face. She thought, Murong Ro, I'm here to clear off our debts, are you ready for this? Behind the house, old Madame Song was sitting in the garden with her elderly friends, wearing a set of emerald outfit with a red gemstone on her head. Old Madame Song, it's your big day today, why didn't your first daughter in law come out and attend the guests? Lu Jia Pu Zi's incident was a huge hit in the city. Murong Ro had discredited the house. Madame Lin came here today was not purely because she was a close friend of old Madame Song, but also to hear the truth. With that question, the nobility and others looked at Madame Song Lao with pure interest. That occurrence had been manipulated by others into different versions. Now that they were all here with the victim herself, they wanted to know in details. I've asked her to repent in the temple as a punishment. Old Madame Song replied casually. Why is that? Madame Lin asked knowingly. It was her fault after all. Madame Song Lao sighed loudly. She acted so politely and she was such a gentle girl, I trusted her to let her manage everything in the house, but I did not expect her to steal from others. It was really unlucky for us to have her now. The crowd looked at each other and pitied the old lady. It was Murong Ro's mistake, but the house's reputation was dragged along with her misconduct. She was the head daughter-in-law in the house. Because of what had done, the house had to bear all charges. What a shame. Feeling the crowds, Madame Song hid her smile. It was true indeed when Murong Ro stole from the other house. This was known by everyone and she could not deny the fact, therefore she admitted it in front of everyone and cut through the details, so that people would not consider her as the culprit. Her strategy went smoothly as how she had planned. It is rare for us to see each other so often, let's not talk about this miserable event. Hui, please go to the kitchen and take out the crystal jelly for everyone. Hui was the second daughter-in-law in the house. She had extraordinary social skills. Now that Murong Ro was not here to disparage her movements, Hui strode towards the kitchen in gladness. Madame Lin praised, this daughter-in-law of yours are so intelligent. Was she the one who organized everything today? Exactly, but it is her first time doing this. There was so much to handle, such a poor girl. Murong Ro, who was standing behind a fake hill, heard every single word she said. This celebration was her achievement. She would not mind at all if Madame Song wanted to build Hui up. But how could she say so deceitfully about the event in Lu Jia Pu Zi? Everybody in Wuhan had entire possession she took from there. Just then, a maid came forward and reported, Ma'am, the eldest daughter of Zhen Manor has come. Chapter 48, Conspiracy Ongoing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Murong Shue. She claimed that she was sick and would not attend the dinner. Why was she here now? Murong Ro smiled hypocritically as she saw Murong Shue walking slowly towards her. Murong Shue was wearing a long light green dress. She lifted the corner of her mouth slightly, and her captivatingly beautiful eyes were cold. It was good to see Murong Shue here. It was easier for her to execute her plan. Murong Ro took a look at Madame Song. This old woman was trying to slander her in front of everyone, so she did not need to obey this old woman. Murong Ro was sneering as she walked toward Murong Shue. Shue, I thought you're not feeling well. Why are you here? Looking at her fake smile, Murong Shue did not want to pretend to be courteous to her. She said without any emotion, I'm here to look for my brother. Yi Er is in the front yard, said Murong Ro. No, he's not. His servant told me that he's in the guest room. Murong Shue interrupted and corrected her disrespectfully. The noble ladies and guests who attended the dinner did not think that Murong Shue was being rude. She was standing right in front of the person who was trying to fight with her for her estate. It was perfectly fine for Murong Shue to treat her in such a way. Murong Ro was stunned, this impudent girl. How dare she retort upon me in public? But she won't be arrogant any longer, not until Murong Ro's plan succeeds. It's not lunchtime yet. Yi Er is probably not drinking at this hour. How can he be in the guest room? I'm not with him right now. How am I supposed to know? That's why I'm here to look for him. Murong Shue said dispassionately. She walked over Murong Ro and followed Feng Tao to the guest room. How could this rude girl be so bossy? Murong Ro would have lost control if she did not need Murong Shue's help in succeeding her plan. Murong Shue held back her anger and chased after Murong Shue. I'll follow you to check it out. She will definitely take revenge on Murong Shue after she succeeded her plan. Everyone followed them to the guest room as they thought there must be a drama going on soon. At the same time, the other people looked at the birthday woman, Mrs. Song. She said she had punished Murong Ro to remorse at the Buddha Hall. Why was she here then? Mrs. Song was feeling extremely embarrassed. She had reminded Murong Ro several times to stay in the kitchen and not come out to serve the guests. However, Murong Ro dared to disobey her order and put her in such an awkward situation. Murong Yi is Master Yu's only male child, hopefully nothing has gone wrong. Mrs. Lin spoke to resolve the awkward situation. Madame Song took a look at her full with gratitude. That's right, we should follow them to check out the situation. Murong Shue rushed forward as she saw Shuang Shi was suffering from abdominal pain and lying against the wall. He looked pale and drawn. What happened to you? Asked Murong Shue. Shuang Shi walked towards Murong Shue weakly. I've been suffering from diarrhea for almost 2 hours. Murong Shue raised her brow. You were in good condition when you came out today morning. Did you eat something unclean? Shuang Shi shook his head vigorously. No, I didn't eat anything once I reached here, I just drank a few cups of tea. Needless to say, there must have been something that was added into his tea. Shuang Shi was a smart boy. Murong Ro did it on purpose, so that it would be easier for her to scheme against Murong Yi. Murong Shue smiled scornfully. Next time you must remember not to simply drink any beverage at other places. Luckily this time you only had diarrhea, who knows, next time you may actually die. Alright. I know what to do next time, said Shuang Shi. His face was ghostly pale with fright. Murong Ro was looking gloomy. She clenched her fist tightly because she knew Murong Shue was being sarcastic. Murong Shue ignored Murong Ro and walked swiftly to the guest room. The door was widely opened and a huge gambling table was placed at the center of the room. Song Qing Yen was wearing a dark blue robe, standing behind the table and shaking the dice triumphantly. Murong Yi was standing opposite Song Qing Yen and surrounded by all the rich men's sons. They were all staring at the dice cup with full attention and shouting, small, small, small. Small, small, small. Song Qing Yen put down the dice cup hardly on the table and removed the cap. He shouted arrogantly, 5, 5, 6. Big. Murong Yi, you've lost. Every time Murong Shue encountered with Murong Yi while he was gambling, he will definitely lose. Such a useless man. Murong Shue wrinkled her brow as she shouted, Murong Yi. Murong Yi turned around as he heard the angry voice. His eyes were filled with suspense. Sister, what are you doing here? I'm here to see how much you've lost. Murong Shue stepped forward into the room. They all thought something bad must have happened to Murong Yi, however he was only gambling in the room. They were relieved at the sight and did not follow Murong Shue into the room. Those rich men's son quieted down as they saw so many people came suddenly. They did not speak even a word. Murong Yi looked at the empty table and smiled sheepishly. Didn't lose much, not much. Not much, it's only $50,000. Song Qing Yen said carelessly as he was calculating the stack of chips in front of him. Murong Yi has lost all his cash. They had signed contract, every round one will then put a chip. There were so many people here, they cannot continue to gamble anymore, it was time to cash out. What? $50,000. Murong Yi gawked when he heard the amount. How can it be so much? The people were taken aback when they heard the amount, losing $50,000 in one morning. Murong Yi was undeniably a prodigal son. You must remember how many rounds you've lost, right? Song Qing Yen raised an eyebrow as he looked at Murong Yi. each round is $5,000, summing up all the rounds. Initially you said each round will be $50, why is it $5,000 now? Morongyi interrupted him rudely, staring at him right into his eyes. $50. Morongyi, open your eyes and look closely. The contract has stated clearly that each round is $5,000. Song Qin took out a piece of paper and put it in front of Morongyi. It was stated on the piece of paper. Not enough cash, lose one round is equivalent to $5,000. Written by Song Qin, signed by Morongyi. This is certainly a fraud. It was written $50. Morongyi was furious. He pointed at the rich men's sons, you can try to ask them, our agreement is $50 each round. They heard it clearly. Chapter 49, To Beat Up Song Qin you are listening at novelfull.audio. Meishi's note. Sorry, I was editing this at the airport so I was unable to double check the Ross, so for anyone confused, Song Qin is a guy, not a girl, and he isn't the daughter Morong-ro. I double-checked and yes he has the same name as the girl Song Qin in Pinyin, which is the Chinese alphabet of English letters, but they have different Chinese characters. Oh dear author, why did you make them have the same name in Pinyin? I was away for vacation for the last week and a half and was unable to edit the chapters that were released, so if any of you were confused about some things in the chapters that were released this week, the majority of it has been clarified. Girl Song Qin, daughter of Morong-ro. Guy Song Qin, cousin to Morong-shue. Second Gongzi. Young master of a reputable house, is it? Song Qin walked toward Morongyi in a leisurely manner. Standing in front of a fat profligate son, he lifted his chin and asked, did you hear I say $50 for each round? The man shook his head decisively, no. Song Qin turned to another thin profligate son and asked, did you hear it? No. Definitely not. He shook both his head and his hands. You. All of you. Morongyi looked at all these familiar faces, he was left speechless. They were both Song Qin's and his friends, but at this critical moment, why would they choose to stand on Song Qin's side and not tell the truth? Morong-shue sneered as she knew they had all been bribed by Song Qin. In other words, Morongyi had been trapped by all of them in the room. Morongyi, I believe you've heard them clearly, do you still want to deny? Song Qin was feeling highly accomplished as he looked at Morongyi's nervous behavior. Morongyi glared at him harshly, he clenched his fists and his eyes slowly turned into blood. Red-colored. He was not trying to deny a single thing because what he said was fact. Alright, it's time to pay now. Song Qin knew that Morongyi could not defend himself anymore, he showed the contract in front of everyone and said, this is the contract we've signed. Everyone, please do have a look. The amount of Morongyi lost was quite large. There are sufficient material evidence and witnesses now, obviously I'm not taking any advantage of him. Morong-ro was standing beside the door, entirely free from worry. Morongyi had lost $50,000 in 2 hours, this had clearly proven that he is the black sheep of the family. The royal and noble ranks people will certainly look down upon him, his reputation will be ruined thoroughly. By comparison, she only corrupted almost $1 million for the past 10 years, it will be not worth mentioning. After all, Morongyi will lose it all in 4 hours. After today, it will be less likely for people to reprimand Morong-ro. However, Morongyi being a prodigal son squandering the family fortune will be the gossip of the town. Morong-shue smiled grimly, this was Morong-ro's main objective, to discredit Morongyi so that no one would remember the bad things she had done. By making a comparison, what Morongyi had done seemed to be worse than Morong-ro, so people will only point their fingers at Morongyi. Morong-shue will not grant her wish, to change $50 to $5,000, all you need to do is add a line. Song Qin looked at Morong-shue with knitted brows, excuse me, I am the reputable Wu En's house second young Gongzi, do you really think I will do something shameless like this? Hard to say. Murong Shui said scornfully. Previously, a madam from the Wuan household had almost hollowed out my mother's store. I don't think you have any credibility either. Murong Ro's face was pale, she gripped both her hands tightly beneath her long sleeves. All the effort she had done to divert people's attention was destroyed by Murong Shui. I don't have any direct relationship with her. You shouldn't judge me based on what she had done. Song Qin Yen took a look at Murong Ro, and then glared at Murong Shui. His hand was holding the contract. You look at this. This is the evidence showing that your brother owes me money. Are you refusing to admit it? If you can't afford to lose so much of money, you shouldn't play in the first place. Both of you are the ones with no credibility at all. Song Qin Yen. Murong Yi was enraged. He rushed forward and wanted to fight with Song Qin Yen. Murong Shui held him back as she looked at Song Qin Yen coldly. Song Gongzi, you're able to win $50,000 in just 2 hours, you must have brilliant gambling skill. Thanks for the compliment. Song Qin Yen lifted his chin high and replied arrogantly. You're the banker for all the rounds played? Asked Murong Shui. That's right. Song Qin Yen was feeling proud of himself. Murong Shui walked forward unhurriedly and pointed at the dice cup. You've used this set of dice all the while. Yes. Song Qin Yen nodded. Song Gongzi, it looks like you're playing a trick and fooling my brother in public. Murong Shui squeezed the 3 dice hardly, the 3 dice crushed into 6 pieces instantly. Song Gongzi, you're actually scheming against my brother and reprimanding him boldly now. Your personality is truly the worst that I've ever seen. Everyone was stunned as they looked at the fragments of dice Murong Shui was holding. They were left speechless. Song Qin Yen, you fooled me. Murong Yi clenched his fist high and launched it straight on Song Qin Yan's face. The agonizing pain made Song Qin Yen recovered from his surprise. He immediately retaliated. Both of them fought fiercely and the situation was out of control. The people surrounding them had no intention to stop the fight. They started to gossip. The truth is Song Qin Yen was scheming against Murong Yi. That's true. Although Murong Yi is a gamble addict, he still knows how far to go and when to stop. Each round costs only $50. Even if he lost 100 rounds, the amount of money lost is still considered acceptable. However, Song Qin Yen changed the content of the contract to $5,000 for each round. Obviously this is trying to deceive Murong Ye's money. Previously, someone was scheming against Murong Ye's mother for the store. Now, he is scheming against Murong Yi for money. This Wu En's family only knows how to take advantage on these 2 poor children. Birds of a feather flock together. This proverb is rather accurate. Murong Ro looked black as thunder. Murong Shui, it's her again to ruin my plan. Murong Yi was tall, and he had practiced kung fu for 10 years. He punched Song Qin Yen hard and mercilessly in the face. Song Qin Yen was 1 year younger than Murong Yi. He did not have enough energy to fight back. Every part of his body was injured. He held her head and surrendered. Help me. Everyone turned a deaf ear to his call. Song Qin Yen should be punished for his actions. Song Qin Yen was fed up as he looked at Murong Yi. Murong Yi's eyes were filled with hatred. The way he whacked Song Qin Yen definitely wanted him to die. Song Qin Yen was too afraid, and he cried aloud, it's Murong Ro the one who instigated me to do so. She asked me to bribe all the rich men's sons, the trick dice. It was all her idea. She said that we'll share the amount of money equally. Murong Yi, you shouldn't be beating me alone. Chapter 50, Torn Apart. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chang Saw. Elder brother's wife, in this case, Murong Shui's mother Darren. A respected adult male. The crowd's eyes fell onto Murong Ro. Their faces were full of shock and disgust. They had thought that because Song Qin Yen was still young and reckless, when he encountered a rich family who owned thousands of silvers, his heart would naturally be filled with envy and would want to take advantage of them. But they would have never guessed that he was only an accomplice. The real mastermind behind this situation was actually Moron Ro. The six-shop situation, Lu Pu Zi, had made Moron Ro the laughing stock of the capital. Her reputation was washed down the drain. Since then, she never took a single item from the Zhen manor. Instead, she hid herself out of embarrassment. She had planned to cheat them out of their silvers indirectly through Song Qin Yen so that even if the incident got out, everyone would blame him, instead of her. How smart yet cunning. Moron Ro hated them all. Song Qin Yen was only 13 years old and he was still a child who did not know anything. If their plan was busted, he would have just had to admit his mistake and the matter would be considered settled. He would not receive any punishment at all. But what she did not expect was him exposing her too. With that, their status spread across the cities. She thought that it was truly a dumb move to take. Song Qin Yen, don't you dare to frame me. Moron Ro stared hard at him, but at the same time, she winked at him indirectly without others noticing to tell him not to bust them out. Unfortunately, the senseless Song Qin Yen did not see her wink. He thought she was trying to protect herself with the scolding and let him shoulder all responsibilities himself. He turned furious and pointed at her, shouting. I blamed you. Moron Ro, you gave me those silvers 2 years ago and asked me to convince Moron Yi in doing different types of gambling. 1 year ago, you gave me 2,000 more to bring him into the casino, and half year ago, you promised to give me 5,000 more to bring him to Qing brothel. My steward knew exactly what was going on all this while. Do you want me to bring them out and prove to you now? Everyone was discussing among themselves. People started to judge and threw dirty looks at her. Moron Yi turned into a bad person exactly 2 years ago. From minor gambling to casino, he started to mingle with other ignorant fools, but we've never heard of him going into Qing brothel. That was because when the incident in the 6 shops was busted, Moron Ro covered everything with the money she stole from the house. She did not give me any money after that, so I had to delay Moron Ye's arrangement. Otherwise, he would be sleeping soundly in one of the flowery beds in Qing brothel now. Song Qin Yen blurted out proudly. He was satisfied with his explanation. Everyone in the room was shocked. The whispering among them soon turned into a loud rambling. She had worn the silk that she took from someone else's shop, used someone else's jewelry and even deliberately led someone else's son into all these temptations. Moron Ro's heart was indeed black. She was too cruel. Even though they were having conflicts among the family, their surname were all Moron. They were part of the same family line. Moron Yi stopped the beating. After hearing the discussion and gossips, he squatted down in astonishment. Moron Shue smirked beside the room. She had always thought that since Moron Yi had lost his parents when he was young, he would slowly grow up into an incompetent and ignorant profligate son of the rich, but now it was revealed, he was actually set up. This was such a good trick of Moron Ro. Since Lin Darren from the house of Shun Tian is also attending the birthday banquet, I don't know if making a good and behaved child into a dandy is in violation with the law of the country of Qinyan. However, Moron Ro and Song Qin Yen both conspired together to cheat my brother of 500,000 silvers. This certainly is against the law. Moron Shue was ready to send her into custody. But she was the first daughter. In law of Wuan, how could she go to prison? Lo Moron Ro's face paled quickly. She clenched her fist tightly under her dress and said, I did not conspire with Song Qin Yen. He blamed me because he wanted to escape from punishments. Sister.in-law, please watch what you say. Wu Hui Hui exclaimed. She walked swiftly towards her and looked at the swollen face of Song Qin Yen. Her heart ached for him and she secretly cursed at Moron Ro. She said coldly, Qin Yen is the Gongzi of Wu En's house. Clothes and food are all provided for him, he does not have to worry about anything. Why would he take so much money? As for you sister.in-law, for 10 years you took everything from our Chang Sa's dowry shops for free and got chased by debtors. Everyone in the street knew that you were stealing from the poor all along. You cheated them when you could not steal from them. Only you alone can do such a despicable thing. Moron Ro was the lady of Wuan. and she had only the status of the second daughter. In law, usually she would not dare to speak to her in this manner, but this time, Morong Ro was just too crafty. She used Qin Yen and accused him so that she could clear off her name. That was too unfair. Morong Ro clenched her teeth. Wu Hui Hui, I neglected the management in the situation of the 6 shops and lost the silvers. I did not mean to drag it for 10 years. As for Morong Ye's story, you all could see clearly what had happened. How can the blame be shifted on to me? Wu Hui Hui spat. If that's the case, why would he accuse you when he could blame others? That was because we had conflict before this, and everyone would believe his story. Morong Ro tried to explain herself. Wu Hui Hui went quiet. Morong Ro was really cunning. Her excuses were quite believable, but she knew it in her heart that it was all her idea. His steward saw everything when you were discussing with Qin Yan. Song Qin Yan's steward is loyal to him, his words are not trustworthy. Morong Ro and Wu Hui Hui were arguing with each other. Morong Shue ignored their bickering and strutted slowly in front. Lin Daran. Lin Daran from Shun Tian's house sighed in his heart. He had been standing very subtly but did not expect to be found. Alas, the dirty doings of aristocracy made people's lives difficult. Even if it was tough, when the case fell onto him, he had to deal with it. Master Lin looked up at Morong Shue and smiled. Miss Morong, Morong Ro and Qin Yan did not receive the silvers and ruin the house even though they operated together to steal from Master Xiao Ho, therefore their penalties will not be hefty. He had encountered similar case before. Such case would only take about 1 to 3 months of imprisonment. Morong Shue delightfully replied, all right, we will all listen to Master Lin. If this is the sentence then we will follow what you said. Master Lin sighed once again. She must have hated Morong Ro so badly for wanting her to go into the prison, but it was impossible for him to stop her decision. But then again Morong Ro was cruel enough to mislead Morong Yi in such way, no wonder Morong Shue would be fuming. Come over steward, cuff both Morong Ro and Qin Yan over to Shun Tian Hall. Everybody quieted down with that instruction. Morong Ro deceived Morong Yi and finally she got what she deserved. Wu Hui Hui blinked her eyes, not saying anything. She understood that Master Lin captured Morong Ro because he believed that Qin Yan was innocent. After all, he was only 13 and he did not accept the money. She knew that he would come back after several interrogations, and started to feel misfortune for Morong Ro. A few soldiers of Shun Tian's house came forward, ready to capture them. Suddenly a sharp intense bellow spread across the room. Morong Shue, Ro is your aunt, how could you send her into the prison? Underscore 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 Meishi's note. After reading too many Chinese novels, I'm starting to feel that all older females or even females in general beside the MC have evil souls. 2017 is here soon. Another year for me to waste my life away reading these Chinese novels with thousands of chapters.